literally went from the most excitement I've ever had having a race car to losing it in about 12 hours. If you liquidated everything I had, like everything I owned, that was easy 50% of everything I owned.
When you looked at your car all just destroyed and melted, what were you thinking?
I like finding my own way to make things work, and like I think about things in a totally different realm than a lot of people.
Every time you said third shock, I'm just like, third leg.
The third leg, you gotta keep it in your pants, otherwise you get distracted from race cars.
Suck my third shock, Cole.
I hate this.
Do you love to win or hate to lose? Think about that.
That's a good question.
In this episode of Project Car, episode 2, we sit down with Nick Plewniak and his girlfriend Maddie about everything. What makes Nick Nick, how you handle losing everything you have and coming back, because he built a new car. He's got a 33, I can't remember what brand it is. I'm not sure. Dude's a wealth of knowledge, probably the hardest worker I know, most dedicated person I know, and I was just a sponge learner from him, and I think you will be too, so buckle up for this. Also, Uncle Rob's shirts are on the website, so just saying. It's like I'm ready to film stuff. You're just like,
we're talking about
just going off on tech specs and all kinds of stuff, like freaking Rain Man over here.
I was trying to show him the data log of the last 2 passes. Like,
You don't need a data log. You remember everything you freaking see on that dashboard. I'm convinced of that now.
what, did you show him the dash that I put in the 33?
No.
What did you put in it?
I had to. I sold my house and I was like, I'm treating myself to one gift on this car. I mean, I still got borrowed wheels and stuff on it, but
For mismatching.
yeah, there's not.
None of them match the others.
The wheels don't match each other?
No. All
Well,
4 of them are different.
Well, the rear ones do now since I borrowed them from Corey.
Oh. Yeah, that doesn't count.
Some cool
I
stuff.
put the-
A new Holly dash
I put
in
the
it.
12.3 dash in it, and it fits like friggin' perfectly.
1 a.m.
Talking to people about how they should view their own stuff, because they're not Nick the Machine drawing engineering things while they're driving with their knee or
See, I'm not good
whatever.
at this YouTube stuff because I don't know. Most people can't relate. to
If
me.
someone they want to relate to you though,
Yeah, I know.
you just have to help bridge the gap. So how do you turn from a guy who works on stuff on weekends and wants to do more with it to the machine? Because it doesn't just start. You don't just go from guy who has fun with cars to machine with life of cars. What do you think if you had to boil yourself down into like phases of evolution mentally, what is your nucleus, and how does someone else farm that within themselves, even in a little like
Snippet?
smaller capacity? Yeah. If you can't answer that, I'll ask you, because you witness this guy all the time. If he can't piece himself together, you could probably do a pretty good job.
I feel like it doesn't matter what it is that you're trying to do. Like when it's something that you want, like you just make it happen. And I feel
Yeah,
like that's
'cause, like,
what
there's
he
no-
is.
There's no. I don't know. You have no.
Plan B.
Yeah, I guess you could say no plan B, but at the same time, like there's no.
No other option.
Yeah,
Well,
kind
then-
of point, right? Because like there's no. I don't want to say I'm not smart, but at the same time, I'm not like overly smart. Like I'm not.
Okay, so like the people that
I wouldn't consider myself a prodigy or anything like that. I just do it way more than most people. And
but
like
you filter out a lot of the other bullshit. Like people who could tell you all kinds of stats on football teams or hockey teams or baseball teams or whatever, like none of that matters to Nick.
Mhm.
He kind of like takes what the average person like spends their
Waste
mental
energy on.
capacity on. Yeah, and he puts it towards all of it towards racing.
That's a
Like-
phrase I
like,
use a lot
like,
of mental
literally,
capacity.
okay. We'll go back
Yeah.
to like some stuff like back in school and stuff, right? Like I wouldn't say I got picked on, but like your buddies and stuff like that would be like, "Oh, you didn't watch that movie?" Like, no, I never sat around and watched movies. Like, I wasn't doing that stuff. Like, I didn't like go out and like do that stuff because like it never mattered to me. Like,
He filters out a lot of what.
I don't like watch.
average-
I don't watch TV really.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
You see,
When
I
we
used to
TV,
watch stuff,
It's racing.
and it's
Like,
gone away. Like
You
it's
filtered that out.
yeah, like I was not always a machine. I got rid of things as time goes on until my life is bare bones, only what is needed to move forward.
Even when I like go watch like some stuff from like 1320 video, or let's say like some stuff from like 660 Street, or some of Limpy's videos, or Matt Rice's videos from DNR Auto or Street Racing Channel. Like when I go and watch their videos of like events
that they
like I don't even generally just watch the stuff generally, right? Like I'll go into, if we're going to this race, right? I'll go through and I'll watch chassis setups of the people, like the badasses, right? Like the Kendall Goins, the friggin' Ryan Mitchells, the Brandon Morks, the guys that are like consistently fast. Brandon Mork, he just drops the ball in the semis often. No, but he's a good dude. He helped me out over the weekend. But like Ryan Mitchell, he's consistently fast. Kendall Goin, he's consistently fast. And I'll watch their chassis setups. Like I don't watch the film for entertainment.
You watch to learn.
I watch it to learn, right?
That's a key point right
And
there.
there's-
Remember that.
And like you could, when you really start figuring it out, like I've been around this stuff for a long time, right? I can hear, if I'm at an event, I can hear a timing retard come into a big block Chevy, whether it's like Kendall's nitrous car or like Ryan Mitchell's car. You could hear stuff where the motor still sounds alive, but the RPMs come up, and you know that they're playing with something with like a dump valve setup or something like that, where the car can still RPM, but they're doing some type of progressive transitioning through a transition in the track or something like that. And most videos, it's hard to pick up on, but I'm not going to give away all my secrets. I'm not gonna
You've acquired that through observing everything around you.
You could hear things like, right? So like if a motor's lagging, it's not making power. If the RPM is revving, but revving at a different rate or revving at a different acceleration, right? They're doing something with like a charged like dump valves or something like that, where they're manipulating the charge pressure in the converter so they could like basically slip the transmission, right, through a transitional period. And like they have different, like I use them in combination.
This is crazy.
I use them in combination, but you can figure it out, and you can kind of start mimicking and learning from what other people are doing. And
I'd just like to make a comment here. I just want to say, every time I try to like, you can tell how focused he is. Every time I ask a question about something, you just go right back into tech specs and data and everything. It's the only thing you care about. It's like blatantly clear. That is the only thing on your mind. Is
well, if you want to be good, you got to
that.
be good. Like and like a lot of people are like, why do you race a car like the way you race, right? Like honestly, part of it is because like I like the challenge of it. A small portion of it is the marketing aspect of it, because like there's no way I could afford to do this stuff if I didn't have the support that I have, whether it's from companies that I've literally like spent my last paychecks on, that have like, you know, the last pennies of my paychecks on for years, that, you know, have started giving a little bit of a kickback and stuff like that because they've seen the progression, or they've or we've talked in technical terms and stuff like that, and they know that I'm serious about this stuff, or whether it's in like different terms, right? But it's a whole lot more difficult to make the type of cars that I run even be remotely competitive, right? There's a whole lot more. Yeah, even with like, you know, like the Escalade or something like that, right?
You do it because it's hard.
It's hard, and it takes a whole lot more, but you'll learn a whole lot more about vehicle stuff. And now, like, I wouldn't consider myself a tuner. I do everything myself. I build my own motors. I do all that stuff. But I wouldn't consider myself a great tuner or anything like that. But I know a good chunk of information from multiple aspects of making the car go down the track. And like literally, like, first pass on the car, it went in the fives, and that's nothing to really write home about, but like it's not completely like horrible. And 3 passes in, we went into the 120s on a no prep in the 60-foot range, and like, ain't completely horrible.
where do you find your most internal satisfaction? Is it doing a specific thing? Is it accomplishing something? Because it seems like you're the kind of guy that is fueled by progress, not specific things, but like what lights you up inside? When do you feel like you're doing it? Is it little moments, or is it big things, or is it a little bit of both?
I don't know. I'm hard on myself.
Anything that's
I don't get excited too often. Like, don't get me wrong, I get excited. Like, I love this shit. I enjoy every last minute of it. But like, it's pretty cool. Like this past weekend, right? Like, it was the first time I really brought the car out and like ran the thing, and to see like my third shock setup working like literally flawlessly, just with like a shock setting, a spring rate, and stuff that I literally just pulled out of my head and just kind of used the information that I have in my head to kind of like take a shot at it, right? And
seeing that come to
seeing
reality.
that work and like seeing it work like smoothly, it's like, oh crap, like, you know, like you're onto something, right? And like a lot of the stuff I do, I don't want to say hasn't been done before, because like people have been doing this stuff for friggin', 70 years, but I don't generally try to duplicate what other people do, and I like finding my own way to make things work. And like I think about things in a totally different realm than a lot of people, and yeah, I don't know, I like that aspect of it. I like one of my mottos is, right, I don't like trying to prove other people wrong, but I like proving it to myself that I can do it. You know what I mean? And like I try to do things, sometimes I do things in a different way just to do it in a different way, because I feel like there's a more efficient way to do it, or a different blended way to target the goal. And
That's true. You making promises to yourself and keeping them.
Mm-hmm.
Like people with high self-confidence make promises to themselves and keep them, because why would you trust somebody who lies to you all the time?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing inside.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you go do stuff all the time, because you hit your mark.
Mm-hmm.
But let me ask you this: if sponsorships and ability in that were not a factor, and you could race regardless, would you race a Fox body like everybody else, or would you still pick something weird for the internal challenge to figure it out?
I'd like, especially in this small tire no prep stuff, there's some big money on the line, so I'd probably build one car that was out there just to be competitive, like that. I feel like I could incorporate a lot of the knowledge I do have in a much more efficient platform, but I'd most definitely have something freaking cool that has a larger, longer evolution for success. When I say success, I mean for progress, right? Like,
Makes sense.
this 33, it's going to be a long-term evolution, right? And starting off like literally the first weekend out there and like making some pretty solid licks and like making it some rounds and like doing all right for itself, that shows a lot of promise. But like, if I had a different platform, I mean, I don't know, I feel like I probably could have made it to like the semifinals or something like that, right? With like a new car. And that's on two totally different realms. But
do you love to win or hate to lose? Think about that.
That's a good question.
I don't mind losing. I really don't.
I mean, not in like a racing sense. I mean, like a life sense, whether it's a task or a challenge. Or do you love winning, or do you hate losing, or losing to yourself?
I don't.
Like you say, you're hard on yourself. Which one are you? Which one do you think he is if he can't answer?
I don't think you're really lost until you're not willing to come back and avenge the loss. Like,
If you're giving up.
I've lost to some bad motherfuckers I'll probably never beat, but I'm gonna keep coming back. But there's a lot of people that I've lost to that I've came back and freaking like kicked their ass. And like, I mean, I don't know. So I feel like I'm more driven for progress than a lot of other people, like progression, right? And if I'm always progressing at a faster rate, than the average person, eventually you're going to get there. Like, you got to eventually get there, right? As long as you're like progressing, like doing it like as much as I do it and as in depth as I do it, and like literally, like, I mean,
You put points on the board every day.
you get points on the board every day. Like, literally the 3 nights before I went to that race, I spent 2 hours a night just organizing my my data logs and stuff like that, so I could get it back to the recollection of how I'd like to see my data come up in my boards, in my overlays and stuff like that. I literally spent 2 hours a night every freaking night, getting all that information set. So when I get to the track, and I had someone message me on my page, and they're like, my wife was completely amazed how quickly you went in there, made a tune-up change that completely worked, had the car ready, and turned around, ready to make a pass while you were there, like literally working by yourself. And that's because, like, I literally spent 2 hours a night, every night, going through to put my data in different cells. So like in the Holly EFI system, we have multiple sections, right? And I use 3 to 4 sections of that just for power management tune-ups, not fuel tuning and not timing tuning, just power management tune-ups. And I have it selected so I can go from one board to the next board to the next board, and I do it in a series. So the first board is like rough lining, like, okay, it makes my where I not screwed up or where the car wasn't happy in the tune-up very apparent. Then I go into the next board and it refines that a little bit more. Then I could go into the next section and refine it even more, and I could go into the next section and refine it even more. So I work my way through those tune-ups, through the data selection basically, in 4 levels, so I can see my errors of my ways or the errors in my tuning in a much more clear aspect. And it's just a way I found out to do it, and I figured it out with the 30, probably about 2 years into running with that car, how I like to see the data and how it works for me. And I don't know.
You ever data log yourself? Like, you ever think, oh, well, I feel better if I drink this much water before I go to bed, or if I do this, I have more energy during the day, or like, do you ever go back and critique your own processes to review your own data log to make your tune-up better?
I should probably do that. I mean, if I slept more, I'd probably be a little more successful, but I don't do that too much. No, but like when I focus, like I can focus on like at like an unhealthy rate.
I've noticed.
And
Yeah.
it bit me.
Told you.
It's bit me medically to a certain point. But yeah, when I focus, I can focus like.
How's your tolerance level for people who are unfocused when you're trying to work on the same thing?
I can't do it. I can't.
It doesn't. Yeah.
I can't do it. Like,
I've
literally,
noticed that's a common occurrence with like high operating people. So they just don't have a tolerance for.
The thing is, like, I literally feel like I can do just about anything and everything on the car, and I don't expect anyone to operate it at the level I'm operating at, but you have to be operating at some type of, especially with how fast we're going now, you have to be able to have a certain attention to detail to be able to touch my car, okay? And that sounds rude, and it is kind of rude, right? But like, you have to, like, literally, we'll go 0 to 150 in 5 seconds flat. Like, it's not super fast, but it's plenty fast to get like really screwed up, right? And like, I can't expect anyone to be as dedicated as me, because that's just like, I don't know, you can't do it, right? Because like, I'm on a whole nother level as far as that goes. But you have to have an attention to detail to be able to do stuff, because like even the dumbest little mistake can screw up the whole operation, right? Like,
I have a pound of tire pressure, which is the simplest
fuck, a quarter
thing.
pound of tire pressure can throw the whole setup off.
Yeah.
Like literally, a quarter pound of tire pressure, a half a pound of tire pressure can make it from a pass that like works and doesn't work. And like, you can't be like, oh yeah, this one's at 12 and this one's at 12 and a half. Like,
Close enough.
It doesn't work like that.
No.
Like, it don't
So-
work.
You're 12 years into this. Most people watching this have probably seen the Dirty 30 at some point. We'll
Yeah.
throw in some clips of it if you haven't seen it before, or they've seen
The stretchy
your
truck.
the stretchy truck or your crash. That was a
Mm-hmm.
pretty big video.
That was a bad one. Yep.
Well-
that one. I haven't seen that video recently, but I imagine it's got quite a few views on 1320 there.
What I'm interested to know is how you could spend so much time and effort into this car and then basically lose everything, and what did it do for your head and yours too, because I know you do everything with him. And to preface all of this, you sold your house.
Yeah.
You're going all in.
Yeah, I'm all in. I mean,
This is the kind of stuff that people need to hear about, that you can actually be like, you know what, I'm just going to sell my house and put it all on the line.
I had a pretty good job the last 4 years. Like, I had an opportunity going to the New York State Troopers. I had opportunities to work at some pretty damn good paying jobs, but I wouldn't have been able to do what I love, right? So, like, I've never been a rich guy. I never really had money. Didn't grow up with money or nothing like that. And I was always basically work enough to be able to go have fun. And I never had a big, I don't know, what would you call it? I never had much of a cushion. Like, literally, like, if I didn't work 2 or 3 overtimes at work, we weren't going out of town. So I literally worked 2 years before we lost the 30. For those 2 years, I averaged 3.5 overtimes a week at work during the racing season, and a little more than that during the winter months up in New York. But yeah, that was literally like that's averaging what, 70 hours a week at work, and then like two nights of like maintenance and testing on the car, like every week. So like literally it was 7 days a week with the 30 basically for like a solid 3 years.
Yeah, I've been,
Basically,
seeing that on social
yeah.
media. You're always doing stuff. Were you always a machine like that, or was that an evolution over, like, as
I was always
as your passion grows, did your drive
the drive grew, but I've always been very I'm hard on myself, but I've always been very very self-disciplined, and part of that goes back to, like, I used to be a pretty good wrestler and stuff like that, and the mental toughness. I think mental toughness comes from like your younger years, from all the way from your childhood, all the way, like, it's a progression, right? And I've always been pretty mentally tough, and like I can focus very, very well. Like, I don't know.
He's got one thing on his mind, that's the one thing that's on his mind.
And it's not always a good thing. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, in different aspects of life, it's not necessarily the best thing. But Mitch has it. Jeff Lutz has it. Stevie Fast has it. I have it. There's a couple names out there. I'd say Dennis Taylor has it. There's a couple names out there that I know that can really focus on a whole nother level and put a whole lot of other things of life to the side to be able to manage the stuff that we do. And that's no easy task. And it's a double-edged sword. Don't let anyone think tell you different. But it has its benefits too. And being self-driven is it's self-rewarding, and it's kind of like it's a snowball effect. Because like the more you do it, the more you evolve. But anyone that does it has the low points too. And like a year and a week ago, we had the lowest point. I'd say that's the lowest point of my life. After the accident. Well, I guess we could talk about the accident if we want to for a minute.
Yeah.
Hot minute.
Yeah, I'd like to be as transparent as you can be about where you were mentally and what you thought you were going to do, how you dug yourself out of that and managed to build a whole nother car in a year.
That went from I literally went from the most excitement I've ever had having a race car to losing it in about 12 hours. And literally, I didn't really document much of it. Last race of 2019, we went fast. We went just shy of 150 to the 8th and the 30. And I knew if we wanted to be competitive on 28s, I had to cut the car apart. So literally, the week or the year before that, the winter before that, I knew that I switched the car from a 29-inch tall tire to a 28-inch tall tire, and the way I built the 30, it just didn't have the front and rear suspension setup that I needed the adjustability to be able to run the car effectively on a 28. Now, when you're getting to a car like that, you get into a whole bunch of deals where like crankshaft center line on the motor was basically fixed. I could adjust the height on the wheels, the tire diameter to raise it or lower the motor, but the suspension trail was what it was. Like there was no ability to change that. So all the tune-ups were in basically pinion angle, the Cal-Track bars, and I didn't really have much adjustment on the front shock settings or anything like that because it only had 3 inches of stroke, and 3 inches of travel in a no prep car is you could basically either make it work fast or slow. So I changed spring rates depending on what type of surface we were on, and I knew we made some damn good passes. We went a 118 60 foot in that car previously the year before the accident, and we went 516 at 148 and then 30 the year before the accident. So like I knew the car made power. It sat at 3,600 pounds, right around 3,500 at its latest weight, and we just didn't have the ability to put the chassis where I needed it to be competitive. So that last race after 2019, like literally, I pulled out of the trailer and I cut the thing in half. Like I was like, this car is not coming out. I'm done beating my head against the wall. Like I'm done. I'm cutting the car in half and I'm making the changes that I feel like it needs. And over the winter I made those changes, and I wanted to do them the year before, but that's when I originally bought my house. And with the moving, I moved in on the day before Christmas or the day after Christmas. Day after Christmas, and by the time I got everything situated, it was already springtime. It was time to go racing. It's like, well, crap, like I can't cut this car apart. So I made sure after the last race of 2019, I cut the damn thing right in half, the front half and the back half of it, and I redid the whole car. And what was it, 4 days before the race? 4 days before the race that we lost the 30, I got a second phone call, and it was shaping up to be a big race. And I was like, I got the car here. It's not fully assembled. All the fab work's done. I think I got a hot rod. So I got off the call with the promoter of that race at like, he called me at like 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night. I was sleeping on my couch, and I woke up to the phone call, and I was like, hey, yeah, put us on the list. I'll go out there. And I literally walked in the garage and started working on the car, and I spent a day and a half or 2 days putting that car back together. And I literally didn't get to make a hit or nothing like that. We put it right in the trailer, rolled the car off the chassis jig, or off my lift, same lift I built the 33 on, put it in the trailer, brought it out to Street Racing Channel headquarters, and made 3 hits out there, and I was already in the low 130 60 foots on the street. I was like, okay, we got a hot rod here. Like, I'm confident. We headed to a street race that night, and we arguably made the fastest and quickest pass at that street race that night. I had a little issue with the bump box in the third round in or something like that. The car moved an extra foot, and we covered the guy by about 4 cars and probably 10 or 15 miles an hour, but we lost that round. But we made from what I understand, we made the fastest pass by about a tenth and a half in the 8th mile on the street there, and we had about 5 miles an hour, I think, on everyone there. And I didn't touch the scramble button once that night, so the car was working. And that night I told Maddie, I said, we got a hot rod this year. Like, we're gonna be able to do all right. And in the previous years, we made it to several final rounds and several semifinals, and won 1 or 2 races with the thing, but nothing like nothing that was I was satisfied with. But after that night there, we had a freaking hot rod, so we headed to Edgewater Motorsports Park for a no prep race, and it wasn't originally supposed to be there. The race got thrown on them last minute because it got canceled. The host track got canceled, so we headed out there, and I was pretty damn confident in the thing. So we were 16th pair right lane, and about 6 or 8 pairs in, I was like, okay, I guess I got a tune-up for this year, and put the tune-up in. I had turned off or opened up the wastegates full bore at 1.6 into the round, and started literally a 20-degree timing retard starting at 1.8 into the run till 6.5 seconds or 7.5 seconds, just so it was going to be tapered off for the whole pass, basically starting at 1.8 into the round, because we had a pretty good 60 foot to work with, and made the pass, and she lined me up perfectly, and it left tires 2 feet in the air and just launched out there beautifully. It was on about I'd say it was probably on a 560 pass or so, and about 300 foot out, I lifted and moved the car to the right a little bit intentionally. I don't want to go into too much details about who's, what's, or why's, but yeah, I lifted about 400 foot out, probably something like that, and moved the car a little bit to the wall to avoid any type of conflict, and the car just washed out on me. And with a big tire car, we're running on 28, but with a big tire car, you can whack the throttle sometimes and get the car to like grab again to straighten it out. And I whacked it a couple times, and there was just nothing there, and it was just a dusty surface, and pretty dusty. And the car went into a slide, and at that point, I went full throttle, hoping the car would come around 180 degrees or 360 degrees, because it was already about 180 degrees. It was getting ready to face. I was basically facing the tree, and I went full throttle to try to keep it walking around. And the right rear quarter of the car caught the wall, and I went rolling about somewhere around 120, 130 miles an hour, and the car lit up immediately, and I got burnt up pretty bad. I didn't have my gloves on. I ran to the bathroom just before the race, or just before the pass, and I was sitting on my gloves for the pass, and I elected to take the burnout and take the tree or take the flashlight on my own, and I paid for it pretty bad. Like I lost a lot of feeling in my hand and stuff like that, but yeah, I knew if I was getting knocked out, I was done, so I got my hard head out of there. But
what is going through your head when the car's facing backwards and you're looking at the tree? Are you thinking about anything but keep this thing off the wall? Is anything running through your head?
I was praying. I had the floor matted, and I was praying it was going to have just enough traction to keep the right rear off the wall, and it was literally within, I don't know, I'd say probably 5 or 10 degrees of rotation, which doesn't seem like a lot, and it's not a lot, but it literally, the car started this way, and it ended up this way, and I went full throttle trying to get it to come around, and I had the back of the car about here and here when it hit the wall, and literally if it would have hit the wall like that, it probably would have just friggin' flung back around and friggin' just beat the side of the hang up, and I probably would have been building or just going through the thing and been out racing in a month after that. But it caught and it rolled and caused a pretty damn bad fire, and the thing burnt. I don't think most people realize how bad it burnt, but it burnt for about 10 or 15 minutes, and I literally had to take a hammer and chisel to my drive shaft and stuff like that to get the melted shocks out of the U-joint and stuff like that.
What were you thinking, Maddie? Like, while this was happening, what was your thought process?
A lot of Nick's had some other minor, I guess, incidents, and I'm just like, okay, it sucks, but it's not that big of a deal.
We make a lot of passes.
Yeah, he does a lot of testing, and a lot, we go out and race as much as possible. So
in 4 years, we easily probably had 1,000 passes on 30.
I believe that.
That's no joke.
Yeah.
Between testing and stuff like that, yeah. I'd probably say close to 1,000 passes in 3.5 years.
What I'm
4 years.
wondering is, so you get out of the car, you realize your hands are burned,
Mm-hmm.
you do something about that. Was there a specific moment after the dust kind of settled when you looked at the thing and then started the thought process of, okay, what happens now? Can
Yeah. So,
how did that go?
I got out of the car, and Matt Burbank of 1320 was there, and he's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Okay?" I said, "My hands are burnt to." I said, "My hands are burnt." And I looked at him. I said, "To," because like they're bad. And in the fire, I got out pretty damn quickly, but I was just getting ready to take my helmet off because I couldn't get the door open right away. And that's why on the 33, I'll have an escape hatch out the top. The factory 1930 door, it got jammed. Like when it hit the wall and when it rolled, it jammed in there pretty freaking hard. And this hand right here is like freaking mangled all in through here. And the door handles I believe are like magnesium or something like that on the factory door handles. And I was working that thing pretty freaking hard. And I think, out of my guesses, the freaking door handle just melted into my skin here, which destroyed that pretty bad. But yeah, once I got out of there, I was just like, my hands are burnt. They're bad. And
we have to move, the lights are on motion. That's funny. When you looked at your car all just destroyed and melted, what were you thinking? Am I gonna quit?
Me.
Like what?
That was me, Maddie, Kyle Loftus, and Matt Rice, maybe. We walked up to the car, and literally walked up to it. And don't get me wrong, like as soon as the thing lit up, I said, don't even call the fire department, like, because I knew it was going to be a melee because of the timing of the event and everything like that with Corona and everything. I said, don't even call the fire department. Car's gone, like you ain't saving it. But yeah, as soon as we walked up there, I cried like a friggin' baby. I was like, oh my god, like literally, like if you liquidated everything I had, like everything I owned, that was easy 50% of everything I owned. And I was like gone. Like I literally sold my truck 2 weeks before that. Sold my truck 2 weeks before that.
With the intentions of daily driving.
With intention of daily driving the 30. So I had 10 gallons of gasoline in the car because like I didn't have a car no more. I sold my truck. I was off of work for a little while, so sold my truck, and I was just gonna daily drive the 30. Like it's a street car. We put thousands of street miles on it, and it's like I could take it to go get groceries. I've done that before. I could take it to drive it to work if I need to. Like I'll just drive the thing, and I'll be my main daily driver. And yeah, so I lost that and daily drove the school bus for a while after that because I didn't have a vehicle. So yeah.
Did you like? I'm trying to think how.
That was a sad day to be a Nick. That was a sad day to be a Nick.
Did you think like, I'm done, I'm ruined, or obviously you built another vehicle pretty quickly, relatively, like a year. You built a whole new freaking thing.
It took me a year to bring it out, but
when did you decide after the crash? It was like, okay, now I'm getting a game plan to come back. Did you ever feel like quitting?
We didn't even make it home, and he already had found a vehicle, and he was like, we're going to get this other vehicle.
Yeah.
We hadn't even made it home back to New York yet. We were planning on going up to Minnesota?
North Dakota
to go buy another car.
Yeah.
So you were, if you had to guess, was it 30 minutes? Was it 3 hours? Like, when did you stop being sad and then you decided to, like, go do something about it? Like, I want to figure out how that thought process works in people.
Within hours.
Was that fast?
Less than an hour. Well, basically, like, as soon as reality sits in, right? Like, after I got done crying, I guess you could say, I was like, well, gotta come up with something else here. So, drained out all my money, and just about all my money. We took a trip to North Dakota and picked up the 33 body, and there's a couple other cars I was looking at, but I knew long term I wanted to build another car. The 30 was quick and it was really cool, but the small tire no prep scene was blowing up, and the 30 I felt like we could be competitive for a short period of time with the way the chassis was, because the car was freaking working. But there was a lot of things that I wanted to integrate into the 30 that I just couldn't because the way the frame was shaped and stuff like that. And
So you never had any other option. In your head there was
yeah,
zero other option. This is what you're doing. It doesn't matter.
I couldn't do after the accident. I couldn't do any physical work, much at all. I couldn't use my hands. Most people don't know it, but I literally sat at my kitchen table with scissors and tweezers and peeled off all the skin of my hands, and like all the skin off of this one, and a good 75% of the skin off of this one, and literally sat at my kitchen table with scissors and tweezers and literally just dealt with it and just like peeled them off, and that sucked. That was painful.
So when you couldn't do anything, what are you sitting there
I had to come up
thinking?
with money.
What's running through your head? How did you occupy yourself without being able to take action with your hands?
I had to come up with a way to make some money because like I lost a lot of money in about 15 minutes there. So bought and sold a lot of vehicles, 4-wheelers, side-by-sides. I actually took a loan out from my retirement as an investment, just so I had some capital, and I used the remaining of the money that I had from myself selling my dually, and started buying and selling stuff. And Jesus, what did we do? 30,000 miles or something like that in the bus.
Probably.
The previous year we did travel and racing. We did like 40,000 miles. And I think the year we lost the 30, I think we did 30,000 miles traveling, just buying and selling stuff, trying to come up with some money to build the 33, and it was freaking hell. It was a lot of work.
I got questions for you.
Okay.
I know, for a little bit of background, you did not come from car world.
No.
You've been brought into car world by him.
Only because of Nick, yeah.
How is it that you adapt to his pace? Because
She can't.
Yeah, I really can't. I try to keep up, and he just is so like go, and his brain doesn't quit working. Like you try to understand where he's coming from or what he's thinking about, but you can't follow anything. It's so hard to do. And I think part of the reason why I can do what I am doing is because I'm with him like almost 24/7. So like you kind of just pick up on some things, but
Like we were literally driving here, and I started doing things with my hands and like thinking through like
he's sitting there driving and he's like in his head talking to himself or thinking
like
out
I'm
things.
literally
but,
going
like,
through like the engineering aspects of a couple of things I want to integrate into the 33, and I'm like literally drawing it out like as I'm driving down the road, and she's like, "What the hell are you doing?" And I was like, "What?" And I was like, I didn't even realize I was doing, but I was like literally going through the engineering aspect of some integration that I want to do into the 33, and we brought it out basically for the first time last weekend. I actually went out solo racing, and the damn thing was working. It was working pretty damn good. It was 60 foot and hard. It went in the fives basically the first pass on the thing, and I chipped off just about a half a tenth in the 60 foot over the 4 passes I made. So it was coming right along. So
That's like, I'm just wondering, because I could see it. You give him like a little bit, and then he just goes phew, right into something. Like, how does what is it that draws you to the hectic lifestyle? Because like 99.999% of females would not get anywhere near any of that, but you're right there, all driving all the miles, driving the bus, doing all this stuff.
I like the, I don't know, is it like action, I guess, of doing stuff?
mm-hmm.
Like we're constantly, I can't stand like sitting and not doing anything either, but I also don't have like all of the energy that he does to do everything that he's doing. So
It's not even necessarily energy.
What would you call it then?
A lot of it's just willpower. Most of it.
So do you overpower a turd voice in your head that makes you want to sit down and not do something?
No.
So there's never any like, there's the voice in the back of your head's like, oh man, you're tired, I don't want to do this, but then you just realize, no, I have to do this, and you get up and do it anyway. You never have that?
Yeah, there's been plenty of times I literally go to sleep, and I'll wake up like an hour later or 2 hours later and be like, you ain't done yet. You didn't get your work done for the night, and go back out there. Like,
How does you obviously do everything with him. I remember when you were at my garage in Pennsylvania, you just like picked up some of my spark plugs and were like explaining, the timing lines and stuff to her.
Mm-hmm.
How did you manage to find your inner teacher to, I guess, like...
I don't have it. I'm an awful teacher.
Yeah.
Well,
Doesn't
apparently,
exist.
are you just a really good learner to compensate for his bad teaching? Like, how do you get thrown into this fire and still
try.
survive?
No, if I can see things visually, like if he sits here and explains, I mean, now when he talks through things, I can follow it a lot better. But initially, I needed to like visually see stuff, and so I always like we'll sit there and talk about something, and he'll explain it. But what I try to do is later on connect that to like somebody else's car, and try to like at some point like bring back what he was trying to explain so that I can know that I've understood where he was coming from.
Or were you about to get like an engineering
Yeah.
thing here?
Like this was what I was explaining to Maddie, okay? About the drop axle and the third shock setup
Oh my god,
on
yeah,
the
I
30.
still don't understand that.
She doesn't understand it.
He's like, I'm a bad teacher. He starts pulling out like all these like random things laying on the
The
floor.
mini giraffe will be able to figure this out, okay? Ready?
Yeah.
So like, right? Like let's say this is your suspension trailer, right?
Uh-huh.
Nice and smooth, right? But like, now let's say it's here, right? Let's say there's a shock there, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a shock when there's slack in the line, okay? So this is like, let's say this is 120 pounds here, okay?
This is exactly why I get confused, because he had no backstory as to what he's talking
Okay.
about.
So like in the 33, I built a 3-shock setup. 2 shocks, they're Viking. We're a dealer for Viking Performance.
There go the lights again. Okay, we got the lights. We're getting history.
So I'm a dealer for
Engineering
Viking
explained here.
Performance and multiple other companies. And on the 33, I run a 3-shock setup. And there was no way, I wanted to incorporate this into the 30, but there was no possible way I could have done it. I sat there for like literally days trying to figure out how to incorporate it. But with a drop axle car, a solid straight axle car, you have this thing called unsprung weight. Okay, every vehicle has it. It's a weight that is below the spring. Okay, so in the independent front suspension car, you got like your lower control arms, you got your spindles, you got your tires, you got your brakes. In a drop axle car, you got all that, plus you have your solid axle, and mine's a 2.5-inch whack custom axle, 250 well, 250 thousandths thick. It's like 46 inches from spindle point to spindle point. My spindles are way heavier than like an independent front suspension car. Then you got the anti-roll bar that's on that. You got the rack and pinion that I mounted directly to the drop axle. You have the 4-bar setup, the 4-link front suspension that I built for it. And you have the wishbone that is all unsprung weight. So that's weight that does not move when the chassis goes through its separation angle, okay? But it's attached to the chassis still, right? So when you run out of stroke on the front shocks, you have to lift that weight up. And that's not good because it changes the pressure on the rear tire. So now when you're changing the pressure on the rear tire, it's A, inconsistent, and B, not quantifiable. You can't necessarily put a time limit and a pressure guesstimate on that rear tire to figure out what its limitations are on acceleration, right? And now you put this on a no prep surface and it's much more difficult. So now if I could keep that front tire on the ground, and by using that front tire on the ground and changing the rate at which this whole deal like accelerates, right? So like you got this movement, okay? Let's say this is the chassis, okay? This is the unsprung weight.
Mm-hmm.
We want to keep this on the ground, okay? So it has a nice like progressive movement, okay? So let's say this is like the extension of the car, right? So this is the extension of the car. It's like nice and smooth, right? But if you have this slack in here, right? And then this is the like drop axle without the 3rd shock, okay? you get this moving, right? And then you're gonna hit that thing, and there's the shock. Okay, there's a stop there. Okay, now if you do it through a nice fluid motion, you could move this up, and like it's fluid, right? Now I incorporate the 2 shocks there, so I can control this speed. Okay, and when this action is ready to wants to start lifting, I activate that 3rd shock before this weight activates. So I could slow this rate of motion, okay? So I could slow this movement at a determined velocity and a determined setting, so I could put the pressure on the tire quickly, okay? And not upset the rear tire.
So it's like a 2-phase lift off instead of, you have your first setting, and then before it would pick the tires up,
I activate
the second one based on its own travel would then grab and cushion it just a little bit,
and
so it's a softer lift off instead of just a
it's a softer lift off. And the whole ideal point is to never let that front tire come off the ground. Okay, you want to keep that on the ground. Now it's still movement.
So not only that yank up upsets the chassis, the back tires, but when the front wheels come back down, it also will lift the pressure off those back tires.
Yeah.
Upset everything again.
Yeah, it's the porpoising effect too, because when that chassis does come back down at some undetermined amount, because like with the 30, right? I could give that thing enough power to just drive into the wheelie and just keep on accelerating on a good track, and I could carry that tire till we're going well over 100, 120, 100 to 110 miles an hour. Like I literally carry that front tire for like, I don't know, 300-400 foot on a good surface. But on an unprepped surface, we're accelerating really hard, and then we're bleeding off power and slowing it down throughout at different distances in different rounds. Okay, so like in later rounds, we might have a 60 foot that could be in comparison to, let's say, high 4-second pass, but let's say we're going low 5s. Okay, that means you're accelerating way faster than your normal ET would be for the first 60, 100, 300 feet. And then the last 300 feet, we have to slow the car down pretty drastically, but smoothly, to meet our ET goal. Otherwise, we're just going to blow the tires off at 300 feet out. So it's a very smooth transition that you want to put onto the rear tire and keep it there for the full 660 feet, well, making sure your whole freaking power management system lines up with the chassis movements. And it's difficult. The main goal to this also is it's hard to get into as much detail as this freaking incorporates, but
We're already past
You
that.
can save that for your channel. Why don't you plug yourself? You spit so much information here. Tell me where they
hustling
can find
horsepower. I'm hustling horsepower on YouTube and Facebook and stuff like that, and I try not to get into too much technical stuff because, like, I could go.
We're just scratching the surface.
I could get into so much detail about like this basic setup right here that people would think I'm freaking nuts. But I'm basically trying to control the center of gravity on the vehicle by using that 3rd shock as well.
No, there
I
are
think
people.
would like
There are
that.
people out there who want that.
I know.
It's just like, I don't know. I've found that the audience for information is narrower, but they're more committed people. So
it's a very broad spectrum to people that really want to know the ins and outs of how things work. And like, it's very hard talking to an audience, especially like an audience that we're talking to now, right? Because we don't know at what realm of education or what spectrum they come from. But like when you're talking to someone that, like, if I'm talking to another engineer, they might completely understand the stuff, right? I'm not an engineer. I'm just a backwoods freaking broke dude that couldn't afford to pay someone else to do it. But
so was Smokey Eunuch.
he was a smart dude too, right?
Yeah, you're like probably the closest thing drag racing world has to somebody like that right now.
I don't know, maybe. I was talking to some really smart people over the weekend, and they're like, I don't know. I don't want to say they were impressed, but they're like, there's a lot of stuff into this car. I was like, don't worry, guys. I haven't told you a third of what's on the car. But yeah, there's some cool stuff on the 33. that's getting incorporated into it, or it has into it, like the rear suspension setup and stuff like that. But there's some pretty cool stuff on it.
For another day, another talk.
Yeah, you get that on your channel. Everybody want to learn about your third leg, or third shock. Excuse me. every time you said third shock, I'm just like, third leg.
The third leg, you gotta keep it in your pants, otherwise you get distracted from race cars. Never a good thing, right?
What?
I feel like you have something to say,
Cole.
Cole. Suck my third shock, Cole.
I hate this.
Well, I have no idea how I'm going to edit all this, but I know if you watch this, you're like a freaking real mofo, because any surface level non-mental capacity having person has left a long time ago, and you are here because you could do stuff too. So watch content that you learn things from, like this and like his and like yours. I think, are you informative?
Yeah, I can be.
Do it.
I need to learn how to like, I don't know. It's hard for me because like I go extremely in depth on a lot of things, and it's hard to know at one limit.
You need to go in like order and finish a thought first.
But there's
And
so
then
many.
start
But the
your
thing
next
is, like, it's.
thought and explain.
But the thing is, like, the third shock setup, right? I could explain the third shock setup, but the third shock setup without explaining the height of the motor that I'm trying to keep it at, right?
You're
I
like
think
trying
to
to
make
take someone to a
everything else work,
400
yeah.
level class that is in like orientation.
You always, no matter what, like something that you and I would find interesting, or you'd find interesting to somebody, like, you know, we would think, oh, somebody else wouldn't find that interesting, we're going to cut that out of the video. But, you know, to the general viewer, that might be like something that they're like, holy crap, I didn't know about that. And it's the
Like
hardest
most
thing.
people, when I talked about my third shock, like after I like incorporated it, and when I first brought it out, right? When I first whipped that thing out, right?
You need to make a shirt for your third shock.
There's a third one.
Third shock.
When I first pulled it out, right? Whipped it right out.
Like, pull out my third shock. Oh my god.
When I first introduced my third shock to the public, they're like, man,
You
that
can't
thing's
get
long.
around it anymore.
I said, yeah, I know. It's got 7.5 inches of extension. Not bad for a white boy.
Yeah, you know, leave a freaking comment if you want to see him make a shirt about his third shock, because I think people would wear that.
I think it needs to be you standing
It
on the
grows
back of the
7.5.
33, just like this with a shock.
It'll grow 7 inches.
Cut.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Why don't you plug your stuff one more time?
Hustling horsepower. Yep.
Hashtag third shock.
Hashtag third shock.
YouTube, Facebook, Instagram.
Man, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you made it all the way to the end, you're a real G. You have what it takes. I know you do. I want to know what you learned from this. What was the most profound thing that you heard? If you made any realizations that just made you go, wow, I'm going to think about something differently, I want to know about that in the comments, because I learn a lot from Nick. I learn from Nick all the time. And sometimes I think, you know, if he can do that, so can I, whenever I want to slow down and quit, because not everybody is the Energizer Bunny. I'm inherently a lazy person inside. So when I see guys like him that are just getting at it all the time, I'm like, I got the same arms, legs, hands, feet, and eyeballs that he does. I could do that too. Also, Uncle Rob's shirts are now on the website, stablesandautoworks.com. Check it out. And if you found value in this episode, send it to a friend that you think would learn from it too, because that's how this stuff grows. The algorithm is not going to promote useful content because surface level viewers don't stick with it. It doesn't satisfy the check boxes to push it out to the masses. So this is a very specific mission, specific audience here that has to be grown from within. That falls on people who find value in it, sharing it with other people that they think it will help. It's supposed to help people. That's what we're here for. That's what you're there for. So let's make it happen.